don't get freedom peacefully. Freedom is never safeguarded peacefully. Anyone who is depriving you of freedom isn't deserving of a peaceful approach by the ones who are being deprived of their freedom. And when black people in this country come out from under the mental straitjacket.
It ain't enough room on a slave ship for niggas like me. Wild and untamed, violent, no chain can silence my brain. Pain is no object. No, I need struggle and progress. No, I'm the one that God bless, so no man curse.
All right, welcome to our class. If this is your first time, these classes are ran by the International Society. We come into these forums to talk about indigenous government, nationality, community action, anything that you can think of to help and assist our community in becoming better, being more informed, sharing ideas, and improving our conditions in our lives. My name is Dr. Ali Muhammad, current acting head of the Aboriginal Republic of North America and the International Indigenous Society. And tonight we're here to talk about law. This is a law class for tonight, so we're going to talk a little bit about nationality. Get some questions from you, things that you might be interested in, confused about, not clear about, and get some clarity about. I did not hear the first part of the presentation, so I like to stay a little bit connected to everything that's going on. So let's just jump right into the subject. When you hear this word right here, or these two words, nationality and citizenship, what do you think about? Obviously, you think about the root words, right? Okay. Nation and citizen. And you look all across the world, you see a whole bunch of nationals and citizens of various jurisdictions. Put that word in. And then when you ask yourself a question about nationality, jurisdiction, citizenship, and you come to the African American, you're left with this big question mark. What is the nationality or citizenship and jurisdiction of the African American? Well, most people say, well, we're just Americans like everybody else. Right? But that's a vague term. If I say American, I could be in Venezuela. People who live in Venezuela are Americans. Right? If they live in Suriname, they're Americans. Guyana, they're Americans. Brazil, they're Americans. Ecuador, Chile, Mexico. Because America is just a name of two continents and a possible third Central American continent. That's all it is. And some islands. It's a generic name. If you look up American in the dictionary, a legal dictionary, you're probably not going to actually find a legal definition for American. If you get a Webster's, you might, depending on which one you get varying definitions of it. All right? So here's a context to understand international law. If there's a word in use, the first place of resort to get a meaning for the word in a jurisdiction is that jurisdiction's organic body of law. That's the first place. You would look. Before you start looking in legal dictionaries and black laws and Bouvier's and Oxford, they should only tell you what that word means in the context of the organic law. And that organic law, in this instant, would be the Constitution for the United States of America and the international treaties that are part of that. And that's it. Anything after that is an action taken by officials who are elected into office, and they might pass additional laws that are supposed to be in pursuance of the organic law.
Chief, when reference is made to the Constitution for the United States of America, should additional emphasis be placed on 1791 in parentheses?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. If you don't understand what the brother is saying, 1791 was the year of ratification, a clear ratification for the Constitution being presented as a document for, at that time, 13 republics. This is just a one-on-one in civics to get you warmed up into the conversation. So you get, in the Constitution, does the word American appear? Anybody know? Yay? Nay? The word America appears. American doesn't appear. All right? So, let's try the United States statutes at large. Does the word American appear as an isolated word that's describing the people? No. Even if we went to what we call codes and ordinances, it doesn't exist. So if a Barack Obama stands up and says Americans, who is he actually talking about? No one knows, because there's no legal definition in the organic law. He's using generic terms to talk about people. Now, the only problem with that is, if I say Russian, I know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people who are part of what we call Russia, Soviet Union. It's clear. If I say Mexican, no one's confused. If I say Brazilian, you got it. So how come right here in the said most prestigious legal law entities in the world, no one can get a clear definition on who is who in a conversation for politicians? It's not very clear, at least. The reason why it's not so clear is because it's not supposed to be for those who shape language and ideology in the minds of the people about civics. If civics was clear to you, the whole world would be a better place. If civics was clear, the whole world would be a better place. Because your resources will be distributed into the right places, you'll be clear about how to contract and how to do these things, and you have less problems. So the distortion is intentional. And it can be traced to its intentionality. So it's our job to do something about that. That's why we come here to discuss and learn and ask questions. And then, in some instances, go further. People go further than that. Take courses and do those particular things. Because we have to answer, who are the people here? What's their nationality? Somebody might say, well, I'm Italian-American. Which means your bloodline is from Italy, which means you're admitting that you're foreign, and then you're saying American. If you went to Brazil and lived, would you still be an Italian-American? It's not clear. So, when we come to people in the United States of America, their first citizenship and nationality was in the state jurisdictions that they were in. They went from British subjects to citizens of one of the 13 republics. That's the first stage. There was no federal citizenship then in 1791. That came 70 some odd years later. So now they're just citizens of some state. And they have a confederation, Articles of Confederation. Then they go to the Constitution. And then you get this word. Natural born citizen of one of the republics or the United States. So the United States was formed in 1791 after ratification. Prior to that, there was no United States. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? I'm talking just legal terms. So the United States of America is older than the United States. I said, brother, you're confusing me. What are you talking about? Aren't they the same thing? No. They're not. The United States of America are supposed to be the state republics. And the United States is the seat of the jurisdiction. If you want to check out this location, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 of the Constitution makes that clear. So, the nationality of these people who form these jurisdictions went from British subject to state citizens. So they can't be called Americans. I don't know if we're going to call them United Statians. What do we call them? I don't know what we call them. Citizens of the United States of America would be the best term. All right, that's cool. So what about you? What about you? This is where the enigma starts. It's actually a sad state of affairs. Because the social rhythm of disrespect is so intense, yet diluted, that it passes right by us. Now we feel it. You know when we feel it? When something really bad happens that doesn't happen to anybody else, and then we all sit in the quiet space of our mind like, yo, why did that happen to us? Rarely do you have a European or somebody who said white have an experience like Troy Davis or, any of our brothers or sisters that go through those things. You rarely have a Trayvon Martin in another classification of people. It's very rare. Hey, there are some instances, but it's very rare. And then we do get upset about it, right? But it's the rhythm of disrespect that started with our interface with these people. So when we come to ask our question who we are, when this stuff started right here, this wasn't even for us. Now, this is important for your children because they go to school and they don't learn that. So they have the impact of the social pressures of that, but they're not identifying where those social pressures come from. Because if they were taught this, it would be like, wow, that was pretty crazy. Why y'all do that to us? Oh, why y'all still doing that to us? At least we know now. We don't have to make a whole bunch of excuses and feel bad about it after we become aware, because now we can respond. So when did these people offer us citizenship? They said, they gave us a name, African, and in 1868 and 1870, Justice Cheney. That's not why it was, it's the most misunderstood case. It's the most misunderstood case because it talked about two issues, two prevailing issues. One dealing with the complete sovereignty and autonomy of the people, and the other dealing with false classification and denationalization of a people. Both of them can be termed today as indigenous people. And there's a merger between the said two of them. All right? So this case discussed Aboriginal people, and it discussed Negroes. And it said in this legal precedence in the case, if you are a Negro and your lineage was imported into this country as property, you cannot bear the classification of citizen. That was their Supreme Court saying that. You can't do it. Even if your descendants at some point became free, or were free the whole time, you still can't bear this classification. So it was like, yo, we're not letting you in. Which means you're an alien. Mm-hmm. You might not be an immigrant, check, but you're an alien. Now, there's a difference between the two. An immigrant is deportable. We're going to send you back to where you came from. An alien is, I don't know who you are. I don't know what to do with you. So now they have to add a word to it. Illegal alien. Because a regular alien is legal. It just means that you're undocumented in our birth certificate registration system or whatever else we have. But an illegal alien, now you're dealing with someone who, not only do we not have no documentation, they don't have their own documentation. Follow me? Because if they had their own documentation, we'd just be dealing with somebody who could document themselves and say, I've been here too. What you going to do? So, this classification was said to be, no, you can't be a citizen. This one, right after he made his statements on the Negro, he jumped right into it and said these people, said Indians or Aboriginals or indigenous people, were a part of their own jurisdictions and had their own autonomy and freedom governments and everything, and we ain't got nothing to do with it. Now that's a Mason throwing you the 52 fake out. A hard curveball. Because he's actually telling the Negro, listen, if you were smart, you don't need to be over here. Have your own jurisdiction somewhere. And at the time of the writing of the case, they hadn't spread all the way over there. They had just signed the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, trying to get the rest of West Mexico, which is now California and New Mexico and all those things, still fighting for it. So when Lincoln came into office, despite popular misunderstanding, misconstruing of what he did, in 1864 there was an offer to pass a 13th Amendment with 20 sections. We put this inside of our book, to be clear. That was not passed. Then in February of 1865, another proposal for a 13th Amendment was proposed, 3 sections in it, and it basically said that the free persons of color would be colonized in some territory. We're going to figure out how to give them their own distinct land base. 2 months later, put the scope on them, they knocked them off. And the deliberations on the 13th Amendment continued all the way to December of 1865. And Andrew Jackson at the time, is it Andrew Jackson? Excuse me, not Andrew Jackson. Whatever, Johnson, the one who came after Lincoln. They eventually passed the current 13th Amendment. And 3 years later, they passed the 14th Amendment, which said, we're going to give citizenship to everyone who's not a free white male, including white women. We're going to offer it to them, right? But here's the offer. We're going to offer it to you, but you have to be a subject. Everybody know what this is, right? Subject. Which means you're beneath this first classification by default. You're beneath it. And ever since then, you've been subject. And it's telling you, if you take this offer, you don't have an ability to make any repair to your situation. Because you're a subject. What you going to use to repair your situation? What are you going to use? Nothing. So they passed the 14th Amendment and they put a due process clause inside of it, right? And they did the wickedest trick that you could ever do in legal procedure. They said, we're going to give you due process by way of adjudication. Which means, if I'm a free white male at that time, and they got everybody in the boat now, we're going to walk our way to it. But at that time, I got the right to bear arms. I don't need a Supreme Court case to elaborate on that. You got the right to bear arms. But through what's called selective incorporation, the Supreme Court could now have a case for all of these people, subjects, to determine the extent of the rights that they have in the Bill of Rights and throughout the rest of the Constitution. So you had to have a case holding on the First Amendment to say you had freedom of religion. Do you know that it was public policy until 1974 that any natives here that tried to practice their own religion, it was against the law? At least in their jurisdiction. Then they passed the, what's it called? The Native American Religious Something Act in 1974 saying y'all can practice your religion now? Imagine that. Look at the attitude. The attitude is, I'm superior to you. I can tell you when to do something. That's the attitude. And you know what? Despite the fact that that is entirely maniacal and crazy, it's effective for them. You know why it's effective? Because if you're abusing someone and they don't respond, that abuse is just going to be effective abuse. So the question is, what is it going to take to wake us up? The clarity becomes when you see what's actually going on. So let's keep walking. 1868. You offer the subject freedom. They're telling you what you can do. And write down this word. You said it before, selective incorporation. Which means if you're a 14th Amendment citizen, you still don't have a nationality. Or it's clouded. It's clouded. It's clouded under process and procedure. So now, 20th century comes, they bring in all these midwives and hospitals to bring birth into a systemization of institutions, which means you go into the hospital, and now they bring out the Maternity Act and they start issuing birth certificates. Now, birth certificates are just supposed to be a better way for the state to keep records on the people. That's how we start off. But after the Federal Reserve gets started, they find a way from 1913 to 1933 that they can make a lot of money off of the people. So from 1913 to 1933, a little bit before 1913, before they passed the act, a project was made to see how can a few of us make ourselves really wealthy at the expense of the whole population, regardless of race. Now, we're going further. And that project is in operation right now. The project is, I'm going to beat you through contract. That's the simplicity. I'm going to beat you through contract. You don't know who you are, you don't know your rights, and you're not collectively unified on the community and state level. You're not unified unless we give you the template. So now we're going to put some pressure on you. And the pressure is, I'm going to beat you through contract.
So is that basically how they got rid of the free white male?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that issue now is we talk about it for the sake of historical clarity, but it's a moot issue now because they got birth certificates too. The only difference is they have the lineage of wealth that they've been building all this time, and they sat and set up the schematic, so they know what it is. So they can set up, their various entities. Yeah. So it doesn't matter now. They got a birth certificate. They got passports like everybody else. Everybody has the same thing, but everybody doesn't know what that thing means and how to protect yourself against the encumbrances that can come on you living in a society where you haven't inherited any wealth and you don't know the systemization of how to build your family up and protect yourself. So that's an at-home conversation that those groups of people have that most of our people don't have. Therefore, inside of the schematic that we live in, they get more success. We get less success. And the difference is the level of knowledge and execution. That's it. So now when we come back to nationality, when you're dealing with the people, or let's come to this issue and understand it at its core. Nationality is nation. All right? You see the NAT, which equals nativity, this equals birth. Birth. And at the core of nationality is family. All right? So it's how you are resourceful in your families, in your community. So everybody got birth certificates now, but even the people with birth certificates who set up the system, they're still getting the benefit because they know how to operate their families inside of the system because they designed it. They designed it. We didn't design it. We're trying to survive in it and we don't understand it. That equals go along to get along. That's problematic. And we feel the problematicness of it, right? Mm-hmm. So what are we going to do? We're going to have to talk and figure out how to get out of this. Now, you come to the African American, you ask them what their nationality is. Obviously, they're African, I'm Indian. Nah, they just going all over. They got a little bit of Indian in me, African, I'm West Indian, I'm black, whatever. Moorish American. I'm more American because more-ish means it goes into the ethers of confusion. You can't be, one is arguing that they're more and not more-ish. One is more-ish because ish is like a more. Damn! Can we just get some clarity? Come on a simple question. And nationality is built upon political status. Political status itself is not necessarily nationality, but it leads you to understand nationality. So if I say my political status is that I'm indigenous, you got an idea where I'm going. Got that? If I say I'm indigenous and I'm in America, that means I'm an indigenous American, I'm Aboriginal American. That's not a nationality. That leads you to the nationality. Because that's telling you my classification amongst people. And we use two terms. Just solely and just singular. All right? This is what leads you to your nationality. So now, if somebody says they're Italian American, that lets me know they're not indigenous. Italian American is not a nationality. People call it a nationality. That's my nationality. I'm Italian American. It's telling me a little bit about your lineage. All right. So, let's work our way into this. Indigenous peoples. And then, we're talking politically now. Politically. Non-indigenous peoples. All of the non-indigenous peoples are right here. All of them. Where could they be if they're not there? They can only be free white males, and that doesn't even mean anything. They're all right here. Now, if you don't want to be this, that means you have to have a remedy for this being falsely attributed to you. You shouldn't have to accept that. That's awful. Nobody said, we're going to put you in jail for not being a 14th Amendment citizen. If you don't want to be that collectively as a group. So now we have an issue before us, a very simple issue, and the issue is self-identification. I want you to follow me on this now. Self-identification. What is self-identification? Self-identification is when you tell the world who you are. I want black people to tell the people in the world who they are. How are they going to do that? If they don't know, or they don't make some type of determination to say that they know. Well, brother, I'm Pan-African. That's a social ideology, brother. That's not a nationality or political status. That's a social ideology. And it's fine. It's fine. All right? Oh, brother, the prophet came and gave us nationality. I'm Moorish American. Good. Good. But I didn't write this book for nothing. On the back of the card, it says, I am a citizen of the United States of America. How? That's all I'm asking. Just to the temple. How? How are you a citizen of the United States of America? Are you here? It's a question. If you're not here, then where are you? Oh, I got you. Now you got to make yourself a free white man. Yeah. That's what happened. That is what happened. So now, if you go amongst some, we're white people. We're not black. We're white. Here's where I have a problem with that. If you're saying politically, black is fictitious and white is fictitious, and they were words of psychology put on, why not just throw away both of them? Why do you have to accept white and not accept black? Well, brother, white has nothing to do with race. Can't tell us that now because we got the same dictionary as you got, and we actually read them. It's going to create confusion. Further, I'm not talking about ideological confusion here. I'm talking about legal confusion. Because you cannot assume, no actual white male is going to come in court and say, I'm a free white male. Nobody talks like that in court. The judge is going to throw your case out. What are you talking about? Show me where it's happening at. Where white men are saying, wait a minute, you tricked us all. Past the 14th Amendment, I'm not that, I am a free white male. Therefore, I have privilege over the other people. It's not happening. So all I'm saying is this is a very simple thing. Non-indigenous peoples are everybody who is naturalized. We got a birth certificate. Or you're the patriarch community or something. Where they're actually pushing that hard line. Like, we ain't trying to be this 14th Amendment. We're free white people. We're Americans. In our mind. All I'm saying to our people is we need to identify with this political status so that we can begin to self-identify specifically under tribal, indigenous, specific entities. So if you're in the Mexican Empire, your political status is that you are indigenous and that you are administering remedy for some type of political harm that occurred to you. It's just that simple. And you're a national of the Mexican Empire. You might be a national of the Aboriginal Republic of North America. You might be a national of the Washington. These are all indigenous groups. Now, if we're wise, we don't have to argue about how to unite. We should be talking about how to do business. Together, sharing and mastering, interfacing with entities that are already here to create the least amount of friction for the people who are part of those particular bodies. So they can live every day, do everything they need to do. So if somebody asks you what your nationality is and you're in honor, I'm a national of the Aboriginal Republic of North America. And any of its affiliated entities. It's just that simple. My political status is that I'm indigenous. My peoples were the first people on this land. What do you want to argue? There's no argument. Because that reduces our conversation to practical things. How are we going to interface with banks? How are we going to eventually form our own banking institution? All right? What are we going to use to travel on the road? If we have to encumber ourselves with entering into certain contracts, how do we protect ourselves and our property? That's the conversations that we should constantly be having. Because those are the real things that we do every day. We don't have to argue about nationality anymore. Anybody who's indigenous and you have a set of institutions that you want to protect, put a name on it and implement your natural international right to self-identify as inside of indigenous political status. That's it. Whether you're Moorish American, protect the temple as an indigenous entity. All right? This is how we strategize against a party that has had a head start on us. It's actually better to strategize that way because when you have multiple entities, no one group can be singled out while it's too young. That's what the perpetrators like to do. They like to find you when you're very young with a vision and then chop the tree down. Right when it's young. The counterintelligence program. Y'all know what that is, right? Anybody here never heard of counterintelligence program? It's okay. Raise your hand. Have never heard of counterintelligence program. Okay. Have you ever heard of J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI? All right. Do we have any DVDs here tonight? Anybody selling DVDs on? Y'all don't sell DVDs on counterintelligence program no more? Hey, where's Steve Coakley at? Shaking in his grave. The counterintelligence programming is programming implemented by intelligence agencies all the way back to 1913 to study indigenous movements and non-indigenous movements to see who was challenging the political authority, economic authorities, etc., to do some type of justice. So you have people like Marcus Garvey. Everybody here knows who Marcus Garvey is, right? If you don't know who Marcus Garvey is, look him up. I got Google now. Noble Drew Ali, all right? Deuce Muhammad Ali, Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X, Dr. Martin Luther King. All of these people were profiled by intelligence agencies to look at what they were trying to do socio-politically amongst the people. Now, we need to understand why those things happen. Those things happen not because of those people being anti-government. None of those people were anti-government. How could Martin Luther King Jr. be anti-government? He wasn't. It's just that once he said, wait a minute, can you tell me y'all going to take these people out here and take them to war, and now I know why y'all doing it? Let's start some boycotts. Bus boycotts. And you start moving to multinational corporations and saying, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do that. You have large amounts of people. Guess what? Then you get the ears of people who you elected in office. That's what you call political change. The only driving force that they did not have is the level of knowledge to deal with self-identification. They were begging. They were going to a senator and congressman and saying, please, can you pass this law for the poor people? But in reality, there are no poor people. They're just people who have displaced their resources, who are not wise enough in their own home structures to live a certain way and have a knowledge of how to live in the society. Nobody's poor.
Go ahead.
Who's poor? The fact that you were born says you can't be poor. If you were conceived and you went from 1 cell to 100 trillion, you telling me you don't have the intelligence to live in this society? And you built a whole body up? Conscious and subconscious intelligence? So people only need environments of communication to bring out their potential. That's all they need. And a good plan. All right? So this is the new socio-political issue on the planet. This will be the issue of the said 21st century. How socio-political structures set up by Europeans and even administered in some ways by indigenous peoples who are living by the paradigms of Europeans, how those systems have impacted indigenous peoples worldwide and what those people are now forced to do. Not just because they're angry, but for their own survival. In the 60s and 70s, it was anger and all this stuff. Now it's for your survival. There's some type of foreign construct that's entering into the family, whether it be economic, whether it be those pressures that take us away from strong families, where you got men wanting men and women wanting women. All right? Any of those things are creeping into your family, it's imploding. So what type of template do we have as a people to combat this? Your health is imploding. Your child is 12 and they got diabetes. And you're still giving them catalogs, scratching their head like, why my child got diabetes? But they just ate cornflakes for 365 days straight. Give that child's pancreas a break. But brother, I gotta get my protein. See? We need a new construct now. So now this is more about what do we call it? Epistemology. Fancy word for it. It's not what you think you know, it's how you came to know what you think you know, and whether it's authentic or not. How did you come to know that you need protein? You heard it. And prior to that, you never heard the word before. And if somebody asks you to tell you exactly what that is in your body, you don't know. It's belief. So now we created the Kellogg religion. The God of Kellogg, special K. And now because you're a mother, right? And you weren't groomed into a tradition to protect yourself and your family properly, and neither was your mate, so y'all get conceived 2, 3 children, and now y'all not together, right? And now y'all raising children, and he's on child support, so they locked him up, and you got some money from the state, and you on WIC, and you on welfare, but you got to work 2 jobs, and your children go to public school, and they learn Christopher Columbus discovered America, and they never learn about this. The end. The end. What you going to do with that? Even when the child is brilliant, they grow up to be a brilliant doctor, which means they're going to kill people for a living. Now hospitals are all across the country, we're losing their funding from the states, and they're shutting down because the thing was never made to work. My point to you is white people don't know how to govern you, not forever. It was a temporary thing. It can't stay dysfunctional. Nothing stays dysfunctional forever. It collapses. All right? So we have to look at the dysfunctionality of these systems, and that means, guess what? We have to stop thinking about ourselves like we think about ourselves when we have that defeatist thought. Like, who am I to say anything about this? You know we get that sometimes. Or other people on the outside reinforce that thing. You're not President Obama. Why are you all into these politics now? You go into these classes. Because I live in a society. Why should I not be talking about those things? Why should I not be interested in those things? You going to vote? How do do you know that the tabulation for that machine is actually calculating the person that you want into office? Have you ever did any study on voter fraud and machines? I had a big study on that in the early 2000s on tabulations of machines and how the people who design these machines can put anybody in office. Once again, believe. Now, I'm not saying unplug from everything, because goddamn, I can't trust nothing. I'm just saying stabilize yourself with the proper level of knowledge to know that you live. You don't have to be in yourself, in this, but you live in hell. The hell that you talk about, that you're going to go to when you die and burn forever. Now, I got some matches. I can light something. I don't know nothing that's going to burn forever. The sun might be there for another trillion years, but that boy ain't going to burn forever. It's probably going to burn longer than anything that we know. You're going to go to a place and suffer and burn forever? God dang. And never disintegrate? Now that's some hocus pocus. That's way better than the Tooth Fairy. Right? And that imprint of fear is the same thing that makes you respond to the IRS like you do. Same dynamic. The same fear. That same feeling you have of going to hell forever. You don't want to go to hell for a little while with the IRS. So you, whatever you want to do. I'm told you. Whatever you want me to do. I'm not going to get that. I ain't standing up. I don't want to hear nothing about that Muhammad boy who was talking to the class. I don't want to hear nothing about that. Show me where to sign. No, I'm not reserving no rights. No UCC, nothing. I don't want to hear nothing of that stuff. I just want to submit. Great, here. Yours, $5 trillion. Or whatever the amount is. Right? So, you'll constantly stay in encumbrance. So now when we come to this, once we get this, check this out. We're supposed to study our traditions and learn how to actually live like this and not like the fiction. This is another challenge. That means you're going to budget your money different. You're not going to, you shouldn't be going buying $5,000 worth of Christmas gifts. I know we like to celebrate. And then don't try to dress it up talking about it's Kwanzaa. Y'all know how we do. You got a whole bag of stuff with the red Santa Claus on it inside of the Kwanzaa bag. Trying to hide, talking about hoping none of the people in ISIS see me coming from the store. No. Figure out a way, all that money you were spending during that time of the year, not to say you shouldn't buy each other gifts or something during some time of the year or whatever it is, but figure out a way to do that different. Alright? Stop buying your little girls little Barbie dolls. And then wondering why they start liking white men and white women when they get older. Ain't no loyalty. So this should teach you some loyalty. Alright? And build a construct of loyalty. And then once you get inside this, then we've developed all types of programs to say, no, we have an equation. It's not E equals MC squared. Right. Energy equals the speed of light times whatever. We ain't dealing with that. We dealing with energy equals energy. And we keeping it all. Or striving to find a way to keep it all inside of our network. So wherever I was dispensing energy out, I need to study to see whether these folk have set up some type of fraudulent operation. And I need to step right out of the way so that we can involve ourselves in some things that are functional. Because you get, what do they call it? They used to call it, I'm young, so I don't even know. Red line or something like that?
Yeah, red line.
Yeah, red line. You get red line. Your zip code in your area, you go for the loan, you don't get it. Your credit gets bad automatically because somebody started using your credit when you was 18, 17. Because we didn't know how to interface with these entities, TransUnion, Experian, Equifax. We didn't know how to create the type of environment to build wealth. We need to learn how to do that. You can't build wealth with dysfunctional families. That's first one. Nor can you build families with Europeanized women and men interfacing inside that family. Because y'all gonna try to be everybody on TV. The wife is Beyonce, and the husband is some crazy DMX or something. I don't know. Wilding out. How you gonna live in somebody else's world and not be yourself? So you cannot build the first institution through non-indigenous means. Now, let me be more clear about what I'm saying in respect to that. When you come to your home, if you start doing this, there should be a level of planning that's different than when you were mentally dead. It should be different. At least the spark should be there. So don't go, this is the rule, don't go and get yourself in debt and call it assets. You know what the debt is, right? I got a mortgage, I got a car I'm financing, I went to college, I got student loans, and I got credit cards, and I got all that, but I'm doing so good. Oh, really? Really? Is that wise? That's not wise. So you got to find another methodology in order to do those things. All right? Why not learn our financial recovery process so that you can get the credit score up 750, 800? Then if you do want to go do something, you have a better ability to interface with these entities. Then when you get real smart, you can start a business and develop business credit. Which is similar to your regular credit. You know how you go, you want to get a car, you say, well, let's run your credit score. Well, you can get a business, you do the same thing. Give them the EIN number, run your business credit. Set up a tax-exempt entity so you can buy the car without taxes or whatever it is that you're purchasing. Those are things that we learn. So those are things that we want to talk about to the people in the public. And what? Why are you going there? You going to a therapist to help you with your relationship? What are they going to tell you? What model are they using? Freud? Jung? Which one? Whose model? Whose psychological model are they using to tell you this is how you should interface with your husband and your wife? Most of the problems in the family start with this. Yeah. Because we don't know how to choose a mate so that this becomes a factor that won't be a factor. Right? Oh, he looked good. Hey, look, that's why you choose it. Now, there's nothing wrong with wanting to have some aesthetically beautiful person next to you. That's normal. That's human. Right? However, I mean, what's going to happen when the next aesthetically beautiful person is more beautiful? And another one. And another one. You'll lose the principles upon which the relationship was supposed to be formed in the first place. Got it? So that's what a lot of that happens because there's no culture. Right? There's no culture. What is a woman doing meeting a man in a society who is not going to meet her father or a man in her family? Sister, you're crazy. Because if he doesn't want to meet any males in your family, he's a hungry lion. I need you to understand that. He's just a hungry lion. And brothers, since we live in America, don't sleep. There's hungry lionesses too. So there's no wisdom in that. It's actually a headache waiting to happen. And I'm saying that to say because that usually is the doorway to further economic problems. Because what usually comes out of this is unwanted children and encumbrances. So now, the democratization of family says that the way that indigenous peoples ran families is so cruel and stupid. What do you mean arranged marriage? That's not freedom. You should be able to grow up and go to the club and find who you want to find. That's freedom. And be like, yeah. Hell yeah. I'm tired of that African shit. I'm waiting for that. Indigenous stuff. Right? But how loyal will children who grew up around each other be to each other as opposed to two people who met each other when they were 30 years old and never knew each other? Think about that. Just meditate on that for a second. If the children grow up around each other and they know each other from young and their families possibly venture together and do things together. That's a much more suitable and stable situation than what we find. And I'm focusing on that because without that, you don't have anything. And the number one problem in America is the destruction of family. It's collapsing. As America collapses, watch the families collapse. And every civilization that collapsed before, that's what collapses. Watch the roles of the man and the woman collapse. And watch the civilization implode. Watch your own civilizations, classical ones in antiquity. Allow for foreigners to come in and pharaohs and Ned start marrying foreign women and then collapse. More civilizations grow to be the most prolific, scientific, beautiful, prolific civil. Don't you know the richest man in the world in world history was a Muslim from West Africa named Mansa Musa? They put him in Forbes magazine. The amount of money that Mansa Musa would have if it was measured in today's money was according to them, $400 billion. That beat the world's richest man by $331 billion. The world's richest man right now is the Mexican dude, Carlos, whatever his name is, $69 billion. But why were those empires so wealthy? It's because of the families. Because in more civilization, we weren't playing that. There wasn't no prostitutes. There was no lesbianism. None of that existed. But as soon as we start marrying other people, what happened to it? Blah, 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 blah. Collapse. So the systems in indigenous traditions actually work. It's just our application of them or whether we live by them or not. And as soon as we abandon them, we see what happens. So now we are steeped in the ways of the European, which means nationality becomes dysfunctional because it only becomes a political discussion and a non-cultural discussion. And that's a problem. Because I've seen with the development of different things that we do in society, you develop something, you do this political thing, you do that little thing, and then the culture is not there, and what you find out is that the operation is a good operation. Aboriginal Medical Association, ICE Aboriginal Law Firm, that. Those operations are good. And if people engage themselves in it and they're sound, they can make some, build some wealth and do the things, but society won't grow. The amount of work will grow because of the necessity and the need to get these encumbrances off. People want to get out of debt, they want to do those things, but they don't understand the mechanisms of a stable society. Yeah. And they think that it's based on opinion. Problem. Stable societies are not based on your opinion. They are based on thousands and thousands of years of study of the psychology of human beings that you have available to you now. And you can go through if you want to and look at civilizations and see what happened to them. And the greatest civilizations on the planet were destroyed by the most simple emotions. Think about it. Think about that. Think about how you can't go across this planet and see all these things that we have built as a people. Then ask yourself a question: how did that collapse? How did it collapse? And all you got to do is look at your own lives, because we are like a culmination of those things. And the things that made them collapse were the things that made people unstable. So that's where most of our studies should be divested towards. Because culture is the protecting mechanism of the political entity itself. The political entity does not protect the culture. It can't. Because it's constructed upon a certain precept and concept. My point is, you want to build wealth? Have a culture that's rooted in natural and absolute law. You build all the money, you build all the wealth you want. Because you'll be so focused and so sound in communication and so effective as a team player, all of the stuff that breaks societies and organizations down won't be present. There won't be a need for jealousy and envy and greed and all of those things. Those things come when people are not in their purpose. A jealous person is jealous of another person because they're not in their purpose. So they're looking at what somebody else is doing, and they're not doing nothing. They say, I want to do what he's doing. Or I want to look like she looks. So now it's competition. God damn, who can wear the highest high heels? You're on stealth now. Come down a little bit. What are you competing for? Well, I'm competing for I want to be the one that gets the attention. Right? Why? Because you didn't get attention from your father. Because if you got attention from your father, you'd have been secure by the time you were 16, 17, 18, 19, and you would have got pregnant. It wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen. Most, not all, but most women who grow up with a stable father don't go out looking for security in men at young age because they got their father at home. They need some money, they got their father. They need somebody to talk to, they got their father. They need advice, they got their father. And mother. Same thing. So we need to look at the said African American and what has happened. And this is why African Americans cannot answer the problem to their questions, because they're afraid to say that all of the pseudo culture that they've learned from white people is their number one problem. It's taboo now. You're not supposed to even talk about that. But that's what it is. It's the plantation psychology that is destroying the economics and everything else. And if you do get wealthy, Oprah, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, you still gotta be a nigga. Oh, brother, why are you saying those things about those people? Because it's a shame to have access, at least, to so much wealth and not be free. That's a hell of a thing. Because you can't go out and do what you want to do. If you wanted to do that. So we need to look at this thing in a different way. When we come to the subject of nationality, follow the progressions, know your political status, self-identify, and then be part of a composite group that's working on this. Your issue is remedy. Look at all the people that got reparations. Y'all want to name them? They put the Japanese in concentration camps when they were prosecuting the war against the Japanese, right? What did Reagan do? Cut the check. The Germans gave the Jews reparations. Last week we said the United States ain't even have nothing to do with it. It didn't even happen here. And the United States is paying the Jews reparations. Cut the check. Where's the money coming from? You. So now I want you to think about that. Your children are going to pay for never met. And an incident that didn't even happen here. And your children are taking Ritalin, Prozac, and everything else, still in the eugenics, still in this operation, they ain't getting one damn dime. Not one. And if you mention it, niggas talk about where you gonna pay for it from. Meanwhile, they paying for 3-4 different nationalities. That's what you call disrespect. That's ultimate disrespect. And at the root of it is an inaction by said African Americans to stand up and say, that was a crime. We need to do something about it. Now, it's good that you're here because most of you are not a part of that operation. And whether Negroes stand up or not, a critical mass of us, even if it's a small, just a few thousand, 10,000, 20,000, that group needs to stand up and be the lead and take the lead and say, not going to happen. So our agenda is to teach our people this to make it clear. And then everything that goes along with that in a progressive, responsible manner. I have to add progressive and responsible to it so that you don't throw on a fez and then ride down the highway 120 miles an hour and say, I'm sorry. It's happening. Ain't it happening? The Moorish Bazaar. Sovereign Party. Paperwork party. Right? Let's have a paperwork party. Everything is illegal. Except you. You know what I mean? So now people get documents and they're going to put liens on the judges and they're going to take this and they're going to do all that and they're just irresponsible as hell, making the rest of us look crazy. So now we have to have a way to deal with that. How are we going to deal with that? Yeah. So the nationality discussion, that's your discussion in the 21st century. I don't know what else you're going to have. What other kind of discussion are you going to have? Another presidential discussion? What you want, a black woman to be president? To add on to? I mean, what do you want? After they get Hillary Clinton in 2016, which is their plan, right? They get her in and they get the women hyped up. Then what? You got a said black man in and a white woman. That's supposed to solve all the problems. All the way back to 1791. Meanwhile, white still moves first on the chessboard. If you understand what I'm saying. And your children in 2000, after Hillary gets out in 2020, ain't gonna be in no better situation. All right. Matter of fact, by 2020, it'll be a little worse based on the sliding board effect. What you gonna do? You gotta do something. Be intelligent, put your minds together, and figure out how to organize around some concept. I think this is a good concept to join around because it's multifaceted, it's non-spooky. You know, there's no religious ideology to it. It doesn't devote itself of spirituality, but there's no religious ideology attached to it. No belief system. It's just people working together for a common cause. So we're going to take some questions and we're going to do our round. Any question that you want to ask tonight, anything possibly that's on your mind after the announcement? Go ahead, brother.
So we do 50-50 here, $2 a ticket. You have the winning ticket, 50% goes to you, the other 50% goes to our region.
Okay, floor is open for questions, so comments and questions.
Two. One, when you, the just solar and just so,
Same one.
could you tell me what you refer with that?
Okay, this is Latin for rights by way of soil. So when you're born in a particular place, you have a right to be there by birth. So let's say if the parent is a said immigrant, if the child is born here, the child can be classified in that jurisdiction as a U.S. citizen, even though the parents aren't. Got it? And then just saying is deal with actual bloodline. So this tells you what people you're tied to. This is the one that gets lost in this operation here. Because, I mean, there are no ancient African American people. You know, so what's your bloodline beyond that medicinal? You know what I mean? How are you going to tie it back? There's a lot of ways you can do it. Genetics, oral tradition, a lot of different ways. But just saying this ties you back to a specific people of bloodline.
So then does that in fact connect you then when you were saying even though when they took so-called slaves,
Yeah.
you're still indigenous even though you were not born here. Is that what you're saying?
Ask me with a little bit more clarity.
Okay.
Even though you're not born here, what do you mean by that?
Even though you're not born here.
Where were you born?
No.
Africa. You were born in Africa.
Okay.
So now you're here. How did you get here?
I was by boat. I was stolen, brought forced.
Okay, you're talking about slavery.
Right.
Gotcha. But that next group of children were born here.
Correct.
But the person who was brought over on the boat, they weren't born here.
Okay.
They were born in Africa.
But I'm indigenous because I was born here, or indigenous because
Both.
of both.
That's why I'm going over just solely. Just solely. Like for instance, let's just, for lack of a better word, I don't like to use this for white people, but when the first British subjects came here, they were from Britain. When they had children here on this land, those children became natives. In the common sense of geography,
Right.
they became natives. They weren't of the bloodline of the people of the land. They didn't have no connection to none of the tribes and the, clans or nothing like that. But they were born here. So they were aliens still to all the other indigenous jurisdictions, but they were still British subjects, but they were born here. So they had some nativity. So you follow me? So if you go ask some children in Africa somewhere, the general law, international law of just solely says that they're in Ghana. Whatever nationality you carry, they carry that, and now they can become a part of the political structure of Ghana because they were born here. You follow?
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Come on, I was born in West Africa, right?
Born in West Africa.
And I came here not by means of the ship or, like, he brought me here by force or something like that. I came here willingly, you don't know like that.
Green card and
Paid my way and came here. All right. Now that I'm here, before I become part of the society here, then I gotta go into citizenship. Now, what kind of a citizen am I? When I equally know that the people that I met here, like that I met here, are still not real citizens.
no, they're not.
So then what kind of citizen am I becoming? I gotta have citizenship. They said I'm only holding a piece of paper. So,
Yeah, I mean, you could function in society like everybody else. It's not you're not going to be restricted from doing anything, but you just need to know, for the sake of the political history here, you are a subject. That's the language that's used in it. All right. Matter of fact, let me read it so people can get it and not be confused. I think I have a copy of the 14th Amendment in this book. All right, so I'm going to read the Citizenship Amendment from 1868. This is what it says. All persons born or naturalized in the United States, born or naturalized, you went through naturalization, of course. That's that process that you call is naturalization. In the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. The validity of the public debt of the United States authorized by law, including debts incurred for payment of pensions and bounds of service and suppressing insurrection and rebellion, shall not be questioned. So when you go through immigration and you're going through your process and you're working or whatever, one of the things that will come up is if you ever have issues with the IRS, or even if you're in the country on a green card, or even just however you set it up. If you have an issue with the IRS and you have a bill, you can't leave until you deal with that bill. Anybody ever had a situation like that who came and got naturalized? Had a debt issue with the government and they wouldn't let you leave? Well, people come to me with that issue all the time, where they're trying to go back to Trinidad or whatever, and they got an IRS bill, and the IRS is saying, we're sending this information to the Department of State, you ain't going nowhere until you pay this bill. Because when you are subject, there are certain debt laws that started here and progress forward into the statutes that you have to deal with. So my point is, you become a subject. You become a subject to agencies and all types of things that are dysfunctional. Now, what would help you better in your scenario is if our people here work harder on the socio-political issues so that when our brothers and sisters come over, instead of them having to connect with the immigration, they can connect with our structures that are stronger. where they can say they can become citizens of our structure, but we're too weak right now and disorganized. And another part of the issue is how in the African Union, our participation as far as connecting with the African Union and the diaspora, they wanted us to set up entities via the states that we're in. And this was an argument. I know we had an honor with connecting with the African Union because they want us to come as U.S. citizens. What do they have to do with our business? If we are here in the diaspora and we want to be a part of the African Union, why don't we create our own political entity? You know why we don't create our own political entity? Because there are too many leaders in these various countries who are puppets for France and the United States. So the people on the ground have an issue. The people on the ground have to study civics so they can get these Negroes out of here. Because it's causing a problem on both sides. Our brothers and sisters who want to come over from the continent and have a better interface, they got to pay all this money to get naturalized? How much does it cost now to get naturalized? $10,000. $10,000? $700? Depends on where you're coming from, I guess. To come from a country and to get naturalized here. $700. Well, okay, well, now you got to add in the lawyer's fees. I've seen some people with some receipts like, yo, this immigration lawyer just took $15,000 from me. My point is, it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous scenario. And who's making the money? There. All right? It's been there since 1868 to 1870. And that means we have some work to do. We have a job to do. Go ahead, beloved.
The original 13th Amendment, is that still valid?
No. It was struck down, and now you got what you got. This Constitution thing is very controversial because there's a lot of arguments over different amendments and this ratification and all that. But the operational 13th Amendment is the one you have now. Because ain't no free persons of color going to settle no territories nowhere and arguing for that unless something big happens. So there's millions of us that argue.
Is there anything in place from honor to deal with immigration for the nationals who came here by way of naturalization or green card to counter, let's say, the after? That's the simple question.
Yeah, the only thing that we do is to declassify you as an immigrant. That's our participation. It depends on how if you went through the whole naturalization process, and you got the little certificate, and they made you a citizen and all of that, you're kind of better off because you don't even have an immigrant issue anymore. You just got that citizenship.
Nah, you don't have the citizenship.
I know. I'm going to classify each one because I know there's multiple people in here that have the difference. So if you go through the naturalization, there's nothing. You can just cancel, those documents. If you are on a green card and you naturalize, you need to go back and cancel those particular documents. The reason why you need to cancel those is because immigration has classified you as an immigrant. You need our documents so you can be classified as an alien who has tribal status. And if that is done, then if any arguments come up, then we can make the right legal arguments. If we argue for you as an immigrant, we're going to lose. And then we're going to be isolated and classified as someone who's trying to bring in illegal immigrants.
Have we had any success with that, or is there?
I don't know. I've had two people that have had that issue, and one of them is in here now. Where's brother? What's his name? Yeah, he's in here now. He wasn't here.
He's here.
Okay. So I know he has. I'm not going to talk about business, but he has a similar issue, and he's been dealing with it, and he hasn't had a problem. The only other person that had that issue was Nikashu, and I think he pretty much solved his issue. He's not here anymore, of course, for whatever reasons. But I know. Jack.
I was going to say, because we spoke about citizenship, I might be wrong with the treaty, but the Treaty of Rome doesn't state in there that citizens actually cannot be citizens.
Well, the Treaty of Verona.
That might be the wrong treaty, but I know it was one of those treaty things that they had, that the Europeans were doing.
Right, and it was a part of what somebody asked earlier of the original 13th Amendment.
Yeah.
But in 1870, they passed a statute that connected to the 14th Amendment that said Africans could be citizens, but they could only be subject citizens.
So that's still not going to make you a citizen if you were subject.
Say that again?
You're not a citizen if you were subject.
Right. So that's my point to him. Right, my point to him is, well, first, you don't want to be that. Yeah, you don't want to be that, and you don't want to sign documents that classify you as something that make you deportable. That's why I'm bringing up the immigration issue. Because if you sign those documents and you become deportable, if an issue comes up with immigration, they're going to send you back to wherever they say that you're from. Okay, hold on. Let's come here and then we come back over there.
With respect to just so we just saying on this term, that time sensitive and how far does that go back with respect to being one land? Because if you look at the European and say, you might have been born on Africa as, before we call it. Okay. Just so we just saying it's right.
No. They would only have just saying it's rights if some Europeans now were in somewhere in Africa and they had children there. That's one pretext to just solely. You have what's called a indigenous just solely and a situational just solely, if you want to call it. Situational just solely is you taking your child anywhere in the world right now, or before the child is born and you're with the mother. Once the mother has the child in that particular space, international law says that country, because that child was born inside of that country, has to accept them as a national or a citizen. So that's situation. But the people, let's say the people who are here, and we're identifying with older clans that are older than the formation of the United States. That gives us autonomy. Autonomy. Yeah, whatever that word is. Indigenous, just so. That's different than the Europeans.
But you couldn't take it back to only one land before we separate.
You could do that. You could only do that if you're dealing with some type of archaeology or anthropology, because archaeology and anthropology are legally admitted finds in a court case. So let's say you find bones from someone in Brazil, which has been found, that match someone in a certain other landmass. That's grounds for you to say, I'm genetically tied to the Maasai people and the such and such people. I want to make a case that if there are clans that are still political jurisdictions there, that I can become a part of them. Or create them. You follow me? So I'm trying to describe two different scenarios. One is just situational and one is historical, reaching back. And you're dealing with science things. You're dealing with the issue of science and admissible evidence inside of some court for some reason.
Right. Just looking at it from the angle of European.
Yeah, trying to say that we are.
One land mass.
Well, there aren't any ancient European bones in Africa.
Right.
And neither are there any in America. And there ain't any ancient European in Europe, except for maybe some stuff in Spain that goes back a little bit. Yeah, Neanderthal. Yeah, no, the oldest Neanderthal bones go back to maybe like, as far as I know, 40,000 years in Spain. And none in Africa, none in Asia, none in the Americas, they're not anywhere else. The oldest ones are in Spain and the area on the border of France and Spain. Yeah. And I mean, if you're going to deal with that, you're dealing with a science called SMP, single nucleotide polymorphisms. And because of how their bones depreciate at such a rate and speed, they don't have ancient bones. And then, even with Neanderthal, they're not actually Neanderthal, but they have similar codes as Neanderthals. So, you know, I mean, that's not even an issue because they're not talking about themselves, they're talking about something that they're possibly related to. There are no ancient European artifacts in that sense, in as far as genetics.
Peace, Chief. And to further support the concerns that the brother has, Article 6 in the Constitution deals with anything that happened before the Constitution as well as during the construct of the Constitution and forthwith.
Yeah, right.
So, is your concern a financial concern, when you say Europeans might have a claim or something like that? Is that
No,
or is
just
it
so.
political?
Just solely just saying was of the blood of the land. You're born somewhere.
Yeah.
And we're a land mass before we were broken up.
Right.
So this is West Africa.
But they don't deal with that in their judicial system.
I'm not looking for judicial stuff.
Okay.
Just the pure.
Yeah, the historical aspect. Yeah.
Intellectually speaking, you can have that debate back and forth over a period of time, but our thrust forward is political and economics.
Yeah. Yeah, it was totally on just so.
Yeah, okay, okay.
All right, we're gonna take two more questions and we're done.
Pop, you have my question. The first question that I asked Pop, you up there is that, in as much I'm here now, in the United States of America, and came legally. Now, I got a green card. Should I stop there and seek another, way of,
Not yet, because you're not prepared to do that. You would have to study your options to see what you want to do over a period of time to make a wise decision. But it is wise to look into it because the green card issue is just a standard issue of them, offering you what they offer you to be here as a resident alien.
Yeah, well, this is why I was hesitant not to take the citizenship. I should have done that a long time there for 15 years. I just stopped.
Okay.
One reason is that the way I see things, I have been, questioning myself. Why is it like this? I want to actually do this. Should I do this?
What country are you from again?
West Africa, Liberia.
Liberia?
Yes.
Okay.
So, I'm stuck.
Right.
I'm totally stuck.
I mean, there's a lot of things that go into the ingredients for your personal decision to do or not do. I don't know all of them, but depending on your level of investment here and what you're trying to accomplish here, that will answer more of your question. Because if you have family here, you plan on being here for a long period of time, that's going to open up a broader investment. If you plan on going back home and being there more, you follow me?
I should have not have family here, but I came here and invested. I opened a company, and it's not, really off the ground and things just like zigzag, like
right.
that. And I'm not understanding what's really going on. Why is it that, things not really happen? And I do not really know how to go about making things right for myself. So,
right as far as your business or right as far as the status itself?
Business, not status. The status, I think it's citizenship. It's just all about the money.
Right.
I put out the money
right.
to get citizenship.
Right.
But I then, that's a good, sense that if I become a citizen, what is it? Because look at the situation.
Right. What am I getting from you?
Yeah, things are just looking, that kind of a fun, way to me. Because, okay, take for example, I see the Chinese, I see the Indians, I see the other people, they're doing business and they're going, right, like the last class I attended, I already said something about, okay, like what Eastern today, Pope brother, they got all the money in Germany. But they live in a certain kind of life. That is not the life that I want to live. I am not an American, I'm African, but I want to invest in America.
Right.
And I want to do the right thing.
Right.
Not to do the wrong thing, but to do the right thing.
Right.
I'm not going to go about, I want to know the society, I want to know anything so much about society.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go about doing things to.
Right. You're going to have to study. You're going to have to study and continue to come to environments where that discussion can take place. Because when you start talking about business in America, you basically talk about warfare and how to strategically set up your goal so that you get the victory that you want, but you're competing with other operators in the same vein of venue or franchising you sign up with your franchising, and you have to understand your market and understand how to implement your goal inside of that market and get all of the best information that you can get on it. This is a good place to start, definitely.
You don't get freedom peacefully. Freedom is never safeguarded peacefully. Anyone who is depriving you of freedom isn't deserving of a peaceful approach by the ones who are being deprived of their freedom. And when black people in this country come out from under the mental straitjacket,
It ain't enough room on a slave ship for niggas like me. Wild and untamed, violent, no chain, cause silence struggle of progress. No, I'm the one that God bless, so no man curse me. Enemies obsessed, they need controversy. I strike with furious anger, no mercy. I'ma eat all they food till I'm thirsty. Purging the clergy like Friday the 13th. The church got too many devils hard working. See white Jesus and I'm uncertain. Go back to Egypt and you might see serpents. Go back further and you won't see dirt. Civilizations full of dark faces. It's the basis, the foundation. Gotta get back to basics. The whole world stole my hieroglyphs and they traced it. Chop my nose off and color my face in. Use my wisdom for standing ovations. Then after that they ask for donations. How you tell a black man be patient after hundreds of years of colonization?
Would you mind telling me what your father's last name was?
My father didn't know his last name. My father got his last name from his grandfather, and his grandfather got it from his grandfather, who got it from the slave master. The real names of our people were destroyed during slavery.
Was there any line, any point in the genealogy of your family when you did have to use the last name? And if so, what was it?
The last name of my forefathers was taken from them when they were brought to America and made slaves. And then the name of the slave master was given, which we refuse. We reject that name today. And
You mean you won't even tell me what your father's supposed last name was or gifted last name was?
I never acknowledged it whatsoever.
We got soldiers that's afraid of their own strength. School of hard knocks made them rocks with no sense. No street codes, just roads with no fence. License to kill, bloody hand on the wheel. Chill in the air, cold stare in the mirror. Ski mask cover the frozen tears. Scared of the life we ain't prepared for. Therefore, got to take yours. The laws that's meant for us, they ain't protecting us. They just arresting us like we look best in cuffs. We never broke the slave shackles, they left the rust. Niggas happy they could catch the bus. Scream from a mountain, they could drink from a fountain. And wash down all them neck bones and pick snout. Get gout, pray to God, now you start to get doubt. Maybe it's some things she left for you to figure out. You ain't listen, you just heard the bigger mouth. The stones that glisten on your neck, bout to piss them out. The guards on a mission, you just missing out. We in the kitchen, you just shiftless on the couch. It ain't different from conditions in the South in the 1860s. They still whistle Dixie, we still eat pig's feet.
We overload God. He has equipped us with 2 feet to run the hell out of the way of things. Eyes to see what's coming. Senses. We shouldn't call in on him so much because after all, he must make spring in one side of the world, winter in another part of the world, fall on another part. We must have ice in one part, rain on the other part, and watch those fishes in the sea. He must watch that sparrow who don't know what limb he wants to light on or what song he wants to sing. So why can't you do something for yourself with the equipment that he's given you?